today we're actually not talking about horror movies so much, but we're going to talk about Philip Seymour Hoffman. That's right, the Hoffmeister, Hoffman. So obviously, Philip Seymour Hoffman is very beloved. I feel like this guy, he just kind of gets slept on. Not too many people talk about him enough. I actually wanted to talk about the 5 top movies that I absolutely love, where he is a leading role. So for those of you who don't know who Philip Seymour Hoffman is, I'm going to shed some light on his universal character. So please stick around because everybody needs to know who this guy is and also the movies that he's done. So Philip is in a bunch of movies that you probably already know or heard of. We got Boogie Nights, we got The Big Lebowski, we got Twister, Magnolia, that's a good one. Even in Hunger Games, he is a really good leading role actor. In my opinion, he's just up there on the scale for me. He's like super universal character no matter how big or small his role is. So without further ado, here are 5 of my top favorite leading role Philip Seymour Hoffman movies. Number 5, which is The Master, came out in 2012 and is rated R. This movie goes into the deep dive of post-war trauma and the draw of charismatic leaders. And Philip Seymour Hoffman is front and center. Sorry, my southern draw there. Is front and center as Lancaster Dodd, who is a leader of the movement called The Cause. So this movie is actually centered on the relationship between Dodd and Freddie Quell, who Joaquin Phoenix plays. So Freddie is this troubled, alcoholic Navy veteran who is having a very hard time trying to find his footing after World War II. Freddie is super chaotic and troublesome until he stumbles upon Dodd, where he is basically the life of the party. And there you go. There's a Philip trope right there for you. They get to know each other, and one thing leads after to the next, and before you know it, they're pretty good friends. And Dodd actually takes Freddy under his wing. The movie really dives into the power dynamics and control between the two, and the search for meaning. And we kind of see that with Freddy and Dodd's relationship, this kind of mentor disciple relationship. But what I like is it's layered with questions of who is really leading who. There's also a big focus on acceptance and identity and just belonging. Freddy is trying to figure out who he is after the war, which is why he's drawn to the cause, because it gives a sense of purpose. Then you got themes of faith versus skepticism, and basically how people can be both comforted and manipulated by this system. The movie really explores very intense push-pull between the two and is really about control, belief systems, and purpose in life. Or, if you could say, getting lost trying to do so. So, if you're into cult movies, I would definitely give this a watch because it has very cult attributes about it. And basically, as we all should do, is to question everything around you, whether if it's for the better or for the worse. This movie is inspired by figures like L. Ron Hubbard and kind of has that 1950s pseudo religious vibe, which, in my opinion, is very vintage, and I like that. Overall, it is a psychological, intense character study that's open for interpretation. Number 4, Capote, 2005. This movie is rated R. So, this movie is actually a documentary crime, drama, mystery, psychological thriller. So, this movie is actually what made me want to pick up the book In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, as you can see here. And on the back is a photo of Capote, and what's crazy is he looks not far at all from Philip's character, and his acting of Truman is is nearly side by side. It's crazy. So Capote isn't your standard biopic. It's a slow, immersive dive of the psychological toll that writing this book actually took on Truman Capote. So Philip Seymour Hoffman, yeah, he nails it on being Capote for this film. I don't think they could have found anyone more perfect than this man that you see before you, and really owns in on how Capote embedded himself within the Kansas community in which this crime took place in the 1950s, trying to win over the locals of the Kansas community and also gain the trust of Perry Smith and Richard Hitchcock, which were the two men that were accused of this heinous murder of the Clutter family in 1959. And this is the real true story about how writing this book really impacted Capote. The film really delves into the moral tightrope that Capote is walking. He's becoming deeply attached to Perry. He's like fascinated with him, but also in a sense almost like sympathizing with him. But in the end, he is still the writer that is chasing this story, and he needs that story to have a certain ending for his book. And that's basically where a lot of the tension comes in with Capote. He actually, the closer he gets to Perry, the more emotionally complicated things become for him. It's a fascinating look at creating a masterpiece, the lines between observer and participant. The book, In Cold Blood, actually sparked quite the controversy at the time because it really kind of blurred the lines between fact and fiction. Capote actually called it a non-fiction novel, which at the time was not heard of. And that made people really question how much of the story was just strictly storytelling or it was actually spitting facts, which also created some ethical concerns, obviously. And some people actually felt that he was just exploiting these relationships, exploiting the awful tragedy that happened to this entire family. Plus, there was a huge debate on whether it was morally right to turn real life violence into literary entertainment. Number 3, Doubt, 2008. This movie is actually rated PG-13. Now, for all you guys who are only really interested in something that is just rated R because of the gore, violence, nudity, whatnot, I totally feel you, but this one's definitely worth a check out because it definitely involves subject matter that is definitely not for everybody and highly advisory. So this movie is a mystery, and the reason why I chose this movie was because it merely portrays what actually does and can happen within the Catholic Church or any church for that matter. As we've kind of find out within the sick world that we kind of live in, that there are actually members of the church that have had cover-ups with certain misconduct with children. Yeah, that's right. It's one of those. So while Philip Seymour Hoffman does have a leading role in this movie, there is another leading role actress that is played very strongly throughout this movie, centers around, which is Meryl Streep's character. She plays Sister Aloysius. I think that's how you pronounce it. If I'm wrong, well, I'm sure you can understand who I mean. Father Brandon Flynn, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. His character is the new priest just now arriving at the St. Nicholas School for children. So, in doubt, the dynamic is painted pretty clearly. Sister Aloysius is this kind of stern, no nonsense type of figure who keeps everyone in line. He's kind of, looked at as like the bad, no friendly type for the children. But on the flip side, Father Flynn, he is the warm, very friendly and kind, and all the children just adore him. And the twist goes, Sister Aloysius suspects Father Flynn's easygoing facade that something darker might be going on, specifically involving one of the young boys, but she can't seem to prove this. That suspicion is what flips everything on its head and really keeps the story going. She is laser focused on believing and trying to prove that what Father Flynn is doing. And in that process of basically forces him into a very raw human moment, which makes the whole scenario even more intense. You start to see that Sister Aloysius, rather than being this mean, stern, has no um, good intentions for the children. She is actually looked at as a light beaconer. She is someone who is trying to protect and do what is right for the children. While Father Flynn is like this wolf in sheep's clothing type figure and is looked at as the bad person between the two. Obviously, we all know that this is an awful thing, of course, But the thing about Sister Aloysius is she is not ever really able to prove that Father Flynn is really doing this. You kind of come to your own conclusion whether or not this is true or not, but really at the end is we are still in doubt. We are still uncertain what truly is going on. Is this man an innocent man? Or is he a monster, a predator, and is just being falsely accused of such things? Which leaves us still questioning at the end. Number 2, Owning Mahoney, 2003, rated R. This movie is a thriller crime. It's a Canadian film starring Philip and is based on a true story about a Toronto bank employee, Brian Maloney, who embezzled over $10 million to feed his gambling addiction. In the film, Philip is portraying a fictionalized version of Brian Maloney, who is named Dan Mahoney. Mahoney is essentially a rising star at a major bank in the early 80s. On the surface, he's pretty trusted, reserved, and normal. But underneath that exterior, he is secretly funneling money from his clients' accounts to make trips to Atlantic City and other casinos all over the place to feed his gambling addiction. As the story unfolds, we basically see his character totally becoming obsessed with beating the odds and eventually leads to his downfall. Mahoney, he kind of has his reputation for being a reliable guy to everyone around him. Still a little bit skeptic about the outcome of his actions. Everyone from his colleagues to his girlfriends are basically rooting for him no matter what, even if people are a little bit shaky and uncertain about him. You start to get the gist that everyone around him are sort of like crossing their fingers and hoping that Mahoney is going to step up and meet those expectations. And then as his gambling addiction takes over, you see the gradual unraveling and the untimely getting caught in the traffic of law officials. Philip Seymour Hoffman does a great job at portraying someone who is struggling with a gambling addiction and not coming to terms with his own problem. Hoffman's side really dives into the psychological side of Mahoney's gambling obsession and does an incredible job of portraying a man who is keeping it together. He's trying so hard to keep it together, but underneath, he's crumbling, man. He's crumbling and falling apart. And there's just nothing he can do. He's made his bed and he has to lie in it, and it's just an incredible character study and intense watch. Number 1, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, 2008, rated R. The reason I chose this one as my last, it was kind of hard, but I think the reason why I chose it was because it was like the ultimate betrayal. Like, I'm not just talking about a girlfriend or boyfriend type deal. I'm talking about someone that you grew up with, someone that loved you since birth, or someone that you've trusted, you've had full trust in your entire life and never would ever think otherwise. From the Irish saying, "May you be in heaven for a full half hour before the devil knows you're dead." That title alone has so much impact and so much to say about what this movie really is. This movie is about a heist gone wrong between two brothers, Hank, who is played by Ethan Hawke, and Andy, who is Philip Seymour Hoffman. Both of them are brothers, and the dynamic between them is a lot like you would get with a older brother, younger brother sibling, fueled by determination and greed. Andy, being a older brother, has somewhat coerced his younger brother into cooperating with a robbery of a jewelry store. Oh, but not just any jewelry store. Oh, no, no, no. They're going to rob their parents' jewelry store. Younger brother Hank decides to send in a friend to do the dirty work for him, and willing to do so, they go and do this while both parties of this robbery die. The robber and the jewelry owner, who happens to be their mom, who wasn't supposed to be working that day. fueled with powerful acting and a unique storytelling around its belt. The film is very different compared to what you think it is. Now, while I don't see too many films exceeding what I think it to be, but this movie is really refreshing and finally worthy of an enjoyable time. Basically, from the beginning, you hit the ground running, and you know from the start things are downhill from here, man. This is one of Philip Seymour Hoffman's greatest performances, in my opinion, which is really saying something right there. And Ethan Hawke was a great addition too. Let me tell you, his role at being totally on edge about everything, where he's taking his brother's bullshit and interpreting it for himself and has nowhere to go to except for his brother in this degree, and it's not a good outlet for him. The atmosphere never really dies out in this film and keeps building up in its tension with most scenes and is very impressive. Overall, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead is a thrilling, rewarding experience that is definitely necessary in modern day cinematic experiences. So, in conclusion of this video, I just would like to say, for a little commemorative thing, rest in peace to Philip Seymour Hoffman. He died February 2nd, 2014. It's hard to believe that he's been gone for 12 years already. I feel like if he was still around, that man, there would be a lot more bangers out there for sure. Like so many of us, we have our demons. However, he struggled with some addiction problems, and he tragically passed away at the age of 46. So if you haven't seen these movies, even if you've seen one or two, but you haven't seen all of them, I would definitely recommend giving these a watch. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I really, really appreciate the support and love in the past from everyone, letting me know like how they like my recommendations. Also, I'm still trying to get better with the B-roll stuff. If you want more video recommendations and type review stuff, definitely give me a follow on here, and also check me out on YouTube. I'm trying to do a little bit more lengthy stuff on there, that TikTok is TikTok won't support. So I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Bye bye.